Evening, folks. We're going to go ahead here and get started. Hopefully the folks online can hear me as well. Vice Chair, can I get a thumbs up from you if you can? Oh, there you go, Mr. Crossley. Thank you. I appreciate it. So y'all can hear us. Then we're ready to go here. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Project Connect Community Advisory Committee to order at 5:10 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th at the Austin Transit Partnership Office Boardroom at 203 Colorado Street, Austin, Texas 78701. As we start, the first item, of course, is going to be the call to, going through our roll call. This is Chair Zahar. I am here. I'll go with maybe folks in the room first, and then we'll go from there. Constable Suits. Miss Berry.
Here.
Mr. Brooks.
Here.
And then I'm going online, Vice Chair Summers.
Here.
And Pet, who's adorable. Mr. Crossley.
Here.
Mr. Handel.
Here.
Mr. Gorse.
Here.
And Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Am I missing out anybody else? Okay, this takes us to the land acknowledgement. And Ms. Berry, you're going to lead us through that.
To ground yourself before starting this meeting, it's important to talk about the history of this region. Long before it came to be known as Waterloo or Austin, this region has drawn people here for thousands of years, in part because of our waterways and the wealth of natural resources. This region has been home to the Tankawa, the Coahuilteca, as well as the Comanche, Lipanapache, Sana, Humanos, and many others I may not have named, who were also caretakers of this land. I highlight this history because Native and Indigenous peoples are routinely erased from the conversation, referred to as having disappeared or having been conquered. Native and Indigenous peoples are still here and present in what we now call Austin. The pursuit of white land ownership, profit, and so-called progress has harmed Black, Indigenous, and people of color in this city. The effects of the legacy of settler colonialism, the theft of land, slavery, and genocide are still felt and present with us today. It's vital to keep this history in mind as you do this important work and to make a commitment to stop perpetuating the cycle of violence against Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. This takes us, committee members, to the first item, which is approval of our April 9th meeting minutes. Do we have anyone recommending edits or have any concerns regarding those minutes which were circulated by staff? If not, do we have a motion to adopt the April 9th meeting minutes?
Oh, quick question.
Oh, yes.
When were they sent out?
That would be a question for Ms. Petkis.
Okay, I don't know if I received them. But I'll check again. I know there were some technical difficulties with emails, but I don't remember receiving them myself.
I received them. The email was dated May 8th.
And Ms. Berry, if you want, we can also just push this item to if you would rather take the time to approve them, that's totally fine. We can take this to next time as well.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure if there was anybody else that didn't get them as well.
And I'll talk about this as we're sort of talking about next meeting minutes. At least I've had some issues with our BC emails. So I know there was something circulated. We need to figure out if there's like a glitch going on with email. So we'll have that in the staff update. So thank you for bringing that up. We do have a motion from Mr. Brooks to approve the April 9th meeting minutes. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. So we have a motion by Brooks, seconded by Gonzalez on the April 9th meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Do we have any abstentions? That passes with all members voting aye and Ms. Berry abstaining. That passes. Thank you all so much. For action items, again, if y'all remember, if y'all give me the leeway, committee members, what we're going to do is we can do the drawing by lots right now because it is something we need to get done. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed public comment. Thank you. So we'll go back to public comment and first see that we're not missing any part of our public comment. Thank you, Mr. Banks, for reminding me. And I know we have folks who have signed up.
We have one here.
Okay.
So, Ms. Almanza.
We have Ms. Almanza who signed up. She will be speaking. Ma'am, please go ahead. Thank you for being here. And she also distributed a letter to us via email that we'll make sure is distributed to the full committee as well.
Good afternoon, Chair and Project Connect members. I'm Susana Almanza with Poder, and so today I come forward. There is a case that has been, I sent it to Luis, and unfortunately, I had technical difficulties too. But it is a case that we took that's called the Montopolis Fairway zoning case, and it includes, it's a 1.9 acres that includes properties on Caddy, Fairway, and Montopolis Drive. And so for years, we've been having to struggle against developers who are wanting to come in and put high density development in our community. This land is zoned single family and civic. And as you can see here on the map, we have 3,744 apartment units ranging from luxury to market rate and a few low income units. When we passed the Montopolis neighborhood plan in 2001 that was approved by ordinance by the city council, we stated that where you see that it's yellow, that it would remain single family. But now we're being circled in by all the multifamily zoning. And so what we come here today is to ask maybe for a future item is for Project Connect to put that on the agenda to use land acquisition funding to purchase this property so that it can remain single family. And I do want to say that last month we went before the Community Development Commission and they passed a resolution supporting this item that the city acquired this land. Also too, because when you have 3,744 apartments, all building at 80% impervious coverage, what we have now is flooding and we have erosion of the Colorado River and also the increase of the heat island effect in our community. And this is one reason why we want to retain our single family housing. We're scheduled to go before the environmental board with the same resolution on the 19th. So and we also will go before the Hispanic Latino Quality of Life Commission. So we're visiting all the boards and commissions and getting them to agree with the resolution to have the city purchase this particular property. And that's why I'm here today, is to bring that message.
Thank you, Ms. Almanza.
Thank you.
I do have one quick clarifying
Sure.
question. And this is, it is going to be rezoning and it hasn't gone to the planning?
It actually fell. It went through the planning commission but at city council, it went through first reading and then it went back on second and third and it was denied.
Okay.
8-2 by the city council. So what we don't want to do, because it's our land speculation, is then come back and be fighting the developers for years for this to come back. And so we're saying here is the land, it is within the anti-displacement zone. It is within the UT uprooted report that the priority is to preserve Montopolis. It is a community that's 33% poverty rate, majority people of color. And so we really would like to have this land acquired and retained for single family.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you for all of your leadership.
Sure, thank you.
Committee members, my apologies for going out of order. Oh yeah, we should ask, is there any of the attendees online? Is there someone who wishes to provide public comment? If so, if you raise your hand, we can make sure that you have the ability to speak. Okay, not seeing that, we'll move on to our action items. So the first one, staff will lead us through this, is if y'all remember, we had talked about this. We need to draw lots to determine term lengths for the newly appointed members. And I will let Mr. Banks lead us through that.
Yeah, so as Vez was saying, I think for the 4 of y'all that joined, I think part of the conversation was one of you will be filling in the term for Gretchen Flateau, who term would end next year. And then of course we could we'll go through the process again if you want to stay on and get you reappointed. So what we're doing is we have in this cup in front of me, there are about 4 papers in here, I believe. Yeah, 4 papers in here. 3 of them have the number 2 on it. 1 of them has the number 1. I think for the 2 new members online, we can do it too. Well, you can appoint one of y'all, or we can have you appoint somebody to draw a number for you. Then of course, somebody will just have the number that's left over, or the paper that's left over. And from there, we'll be able to decide who has the 2-year terms and who has the 1-year term. For the person who gets the 1 year term, you would still be eligible to serve 2 full terms to the CAC if you would like, if you would choose. And so we can go ahead and get that going if there aren't any questions. And then Edgar or Cutter, I don't know if you, I guess I can pull for y'all, for one of you.
Yeah, I'm fine if you want to pull for me.
Okay, and then I think somebody will just have the last one that's left, and we'll know. I guess Edgar, that'll be yours, the last one in the cup. Is that's okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
Or unless you want to go first, it's the chair's call.
It's all random to me.
Sounds like we're good to go.
Okay, so who you want to go first?
Well, let's do in the
In the room?
first.
All right.
Can you clarify who are the people? Sorry, 'cause I also entered midterm, so I don't know if I'm one of these people. Am I?
No.
Okay.
You're not. Oh, we're missing one.
We are missing one. Yes, Miss Mickey, he is not here.
Yes, she may be the.
She may be the last one. So in which case, Mr. Handel, are you fine with me picking for you?
Yes.
I get to have even more gorgeous curly hair for a moment, so it's mine.
You going first?
Oh no, let's go.
Mr. Sweets.
I share it as it comes up as well. Okay, Constable Suits has a 2-year term. I'm going to pick up for Mr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, we can stop now. Mr. Gonzalez has the 1 year term.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'm picking for Mr. Handel. That is 2 years as well. And that means Miss Mickey, he has a 2-year term as well. Okay, we have our terms and hopefully staff noted those down in the order that it made sense. I think the only thing that made sense was Mr. Gonzalez is 1 year, everybody else is 2 year.
And then yeah, again, Mr. Gonzalez, you'll be able to, if you so choose, you'll be able to
Reapply.
reapply. And that process is a lot easier once you've been on than what you went through. And then you want to stay on, we'll go through that process.
And just to let folks know if this sounds confusing, we moved to staggered terms a few years ago just to make sure that we have continuity on the body as we proceed. Thank you all for humoring us through that. The other action item that I would like to take up before the item from staff, and we do have a really robust discussion item, is the officer elections. And I really have to apologize that I did not do the work on this that I should have done in advance. It's been a busy time. I'll start by asking, so we have 3 officer positions for the CSE. We have chair, vice chair, and secretary. Right now, I serve in the chair position. Committee member Summers serves in the vice chair position. And then we have Mr. Garza serving in the secretary position. Do we have any interest from any committee members who are present today or staff, if we have heard from via email from other committee members, that there's any interest on serving as in any one of those 3 positions? Okay. Any interest at all? In which case, Ms. Summers, are you open to serving in the vice chair position?
Yes.
I am wary of volunteering Mr. Garza to serve in the secretary position again. In which case, is there anyone who would be interested, and I can talk about what that position does if folks would like to learn more about any of the positions or commitments of the officers?
If you could talk more about what secretary entails, that'd be helpful, I think, of us. Thank you.
Sure. So really, honestly, it's not a heavy lift. Generally, the task of the secretary is just to make sure that, we're on point as we're recording our minutes and other things. Our staff, thankfully, helps us with that. The secretary just usually looks at it to make sure it looks good and to catch anything. Beyond that, we don't really have any records as a body that the secretary would be keeping up with. Every month, we have planning meeting with staff where we go about setting the agenda and talk about sort of the cadence of items. The secretary and vice chair are by no means required to be there. As long as I'm there, that works. But people will be welcome to join that as well. So all that said, honestly, it's a low lift. But if somebody wants to get engaged more and pull into things, that's fine as well.
I
Any-
would also add, if there was a time that the chair and vice chair were both unable to lead the meeting, then it would fall to the secretary, I think would be the next in line to be physically present at the meeting and conduct the meeting.
That is correct. Thank you for that reminder, Ms. Summers, which is that the officer running the meeting or whoever that's chairing the meeting has to be present in person. So we have occasionally had it where I'm not able to because I'm traveling or something. Vice Chair Summers takes over. And if there was, I think, at least once where none of us was available and then the secretary takes over that position, they have to be present in person. Any questions? Any volunteers?
I'm happy to
Oh.
volunteer.
Okay, that sounds good. So we do have a slate. Is there anyone else again who is interested in any one of the positions? In which case, if folks don't mind, I would love for someone else to take the motion. I'll set out the motion. The motion would be for me to continue as chair, Vice Chair Summers to continue as vice chair, and Ms. Perry to take over the secretary position.
Second.
I would love if somebody else made a motion since I'm going to be nominating myself, but I'm happy to do that as well. The rules do allow me to do it. Do you want to take over the motion? Constable Suits, do you want to do it? Well, she's going to be nominated as well, so. Do you have any takers for the motion? You're good to go? Okay. We have a motion from Mr. Brooks, seconded by Constable Suits. Any discussion of these suites? Any discussion of this before we make a motion? Not all those in favor say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
I'm sorry, yes, seconded. So thank you all so much. That passes unanimously. Again, my apologies. I honestly should have done this better. I do want to mention our officer elections come up every year in May and can switch midterm as well. Thank you all for honestly just being so supportive over the years for both me and Vice Chair Summers. Happy to do that. But also if there is an interest in taking over leadership, I want to make sure that we can switch mid-year as well. So all that said, if anybody has any interest or somebody feels like in his current position they cannot serve, please let us know and we can make sure that we create more space for folks who take over roles. But thank you all so much. Okay, that takes us to our discussion item. I'll come to working group appointments later unless there's any pushback on that. And this is really our ATP team has a more comprehensive conversation around Austin Light Rail. There's a lot of items moving forward. As folks know, we got a basic update in January, but at the same time, we're essentially going to have the ability to hear more, ask questions, and learn more about where the project conversations around the light rail are. And we have Ms. Jen Pine leading us through that.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the members of the committee for having us here today. As mentioned, we'll provide an update on kind of what's going on with the light rail project. Let's see if I can advance. Here we go. I'm going to start with this timeline, which has been one of our standard graphics. But I'm pleased to say we actually moved the "We Are Here" green bar one spot. It's taken us 2 years, but that was the last 2 years has been the work on the environmental review and some of the earlier project development and planning. So with the conclusion of the NEPA process in January of this year, which I know we were here speaking about previously, we're really moving into the next phase, which is...
Ms. Pine, can we ask you to slow down just a little bit for our interpreters?
Yes, sir. So the current stage that we are well into here in 2026 is pre-construction. We are continuing to progress the design, but also planning for construction activities, looking for those to start next year. To support that work, we have awarded a number of contracts this year, and we have one more big one to go. And we have some representatives from these teams here that I'd like to introduce. The first contract is for the design and the construction of all of the civil work, the rail itself, the stations, and all of the systems. So that team is Stacy Stacy Whitbeck and Sunt joint venture. And we have Brittany here, who is the lead for the community engagement on that team. And I was going to ask if they could introduce themselves. Is that okay for so?
Yes, and the only thing we would ask is if you can come up and use the microphones.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Keim, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the Austin Rail Constructors team, and we're responsible for the build out of the light rail train.
So we also awarded a contract for the design and the construction of the operations and maintenance facility. And that team is Kiewit Austin Partners, or CAP, as we call it. And the lead is Kiewit, and there's a few members of the community engagement team here as well. Thank you for coming up.
Of course. Hi, I'm Kim Taylor.
Oh, you might need to press the button.
And feel free to sit down as well with me.
Oh, is it working? No, okay. Okay, hi, I'm Kim Taylor with the CAP part of Kiewit Austin Partnerships, excuse me, and we are responsible for doing all the community outreach and engagement around the OMF.
And my name is Esme Orozco, and I'm also with Kim Taylor and the team.
So thank you so much. I know that you will be seeing more of these folks as we get into the projects. So in addition, there is one contract, a big one, yet to be awarded, and that is for the light rail vehicles themselves. We are still in an active solicitation on that one, but we are hoping to conclude the process and take a recommendation to our board this summer. We received 4 proposals to design and manufacture the rail vehicles, and these will be vehicles that are custom designed for Austin. And so we'll have more on that, once that reaches a conclusion. I'm going to talk a little bit about, I mentioned we're in a pre-construction mode, what that means. So pre-construction, and this generalized schedule applies to both contracts, both the overall light rail contract and the operations and maintenance facility. Both are jumping right in and continuing the design, picking it up from where we left it in the EIS and continuing to progress it. Design innovation is a big part of that work, especially looking at the bridge over Lady Bird Lake, looking at the operations and maintenance facility and any potential for optimizing that. And also thinking about the constructability of the project and what that looks like, and thinking through a schedule for construction and how those activities would be sequenced. We don't anticipate that there's going to be construction on all 10 miles at the same time. We think it will be phased out. And so that's the work right now, to think through exactly how it's delivered. Once the vehicle contract is awarded, our intention is to have some representatives from the car builder be part of the design coordination efforts with the progressive design builder teams. This, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, we are constructing an operations and maintenance facility to serve the vehicles, and also the car itself has a lot to do with how you design the tracks and how it operates. So after that initial design coordination phase, later this year, we anticipate that we would issue a work order for them to start the vehicle design and delivery. Once that we've executed the contract with that company, we'll be able to come back with more information on how the community can engage in the design and sort of understand kind of where they can have input on the design of the vehicle itself. That was a huge component, by the way, in the interviews and the proposals coming from the car builders. So after this pre-construction phase 1A, we do have a phase 1B that we expect all the designers to be working on later this year. So that will be just to continue design and take it to its conclusion, essentially, and start to put together the actual packages for construction. We're anticipating that there will be a series of different construction work packages that are issued over time. And again, that's the work this year to continue to think through exactly how that work will be sequenced. So on the bottom row of this graphic, just a couple notes on the federal process milestones. Of course, we're still in the pipeline looking ahead towards New Start's grant funding. And while completing the environmental review process was a big milestone, there's still a few more ahead. We are very actively working with the Federal Transit Administration on all of the due diligence work and reviews towards receiving a federal grant. We're anticipating that won't be until 2028, but we are working closely along the way. There's one milestone noted here. It's called entry to engineering, which is a little bit of a funny misnomer because we've been engineering for a long time, but that's the name of that gate in the federal grant process. And that's the moment when we are agreeing to the amount of the federal grant. And then it takes time after that to actually execute the agreement. So just a little bit more about the pre-construction activities that are happening right now. I mean, certainly we're advancing design, but we are also out in the field. There are a number of surveys and different boring and potholing activities that are ongoing. So those might be items that you start to see. It probably doesn't really look like anything very special. You might see that kind of work being done all the time, but it's collecting important data for the designers to be able to continually refine and optimize the design. For example, doing the borings is essentially, it is called potholing, and I was reminded recently that potholing for most people has a different meaning. But in our case, it's really like drilling down maybe 30 feet or more and to just understand the soil conditions, helping to locate utilities, just get us better information to feed the design. So there's a picture of a card on here, and that's just to indicate that these are they're business card sized items that we give to the crews out in the field. So if people come along and ask any questions about what's going on, they can just hand that to them and they can find out more information about the project. So looking ahead, this year, we will be advancing right-of-way acquisition for certain priority locations. Primarily the sites that were identified as the priorities based on there are larger sites that are needed, or there might be certain considerations associated with them that we think might take a little extra time. Like, for example, where there's a gas station located there, there's usually additional environmental remediation that's required. So that work is proceeding this year. As far as the construction planning, again, just setting out the sequencing, the timing, and as part of that, identifying early works and what construction activities might happen first. At this moment, we are assuming that it will most likely be some different utility relocation projects might be the first things out of the gate next year. And we will be working over the next 4 or 5 months to prepare the scope for final design and authorize that work, which we're calling Phase 1B. I want to talk for just a minute about how we work, because in some ways it's a little bit unusual. We have co-located a number of the design build contractors here in this office. If you were to walk around a little bit, you would see that we have probably doubled the capacity here, and we've put desks in all kinds of places. Right now, we have 50 members of the contractor team who are in here on a daily basis, and more than that, that come in on a periodic or something less than full-time basis. So we are working very hard to fully integrate all of the technical work between the contractors, between ATP, and with our partners at CAP Metro and the city, who are embedded in all of the task forces and working groups, as it relates to what the different roles on the project are. I wanted to highlight just a couple of key areas of partner coordination. One is on the design work as we're continuing to progress to make sure that the city, CAT Metro, and ATP are all aligned in how that work's proceeding. We are in the process of updating our ridership modeling. The last time that we issued ridership data, it was provided in the environmental impact statement, and it was modeled a couple of years ago. So we're in the process of updating that based on just all the updated data we have, which include new ridership data from CAT Metro, which is improving and getting higher, but also Campo has new and updated population and employment data that is driving the ridership as well. So we'll have some updates on that later in the year. And finally, we are planning for operations and maintenance, even though that is some years away. I have another slide on that to talk a little bit about more what that means, because it is a big area. And when we talk about operations and maintenance, it's a very complex topic and it incorporates a lot of different things. So one of the work streams related to operations and maintenance is input to design, so that we are always thinking about the total life cycle of the project when we are doing design. We want to be sure that there is the operations perspective to speak to storage tracks crossovers that are necessary to operate the service in a way that is reliable and frequent, and to the frequencies that we're proposing. Another key consideration at this point is a multimodal integration, meaning how does the light rail work with the buses and also the micro mobility all along the corridor. Ultimately, we want to be thinking, since we have the tax initiative that provided the local funding for this, it pays for the capital, but it also pays for the operations and maintenance. So we have an especially built-in incentive to always think about the overall life cycle cost of what we're doing, and to think about not only what we're building now and how we're building it, but also what will it cost to maintain over time, whether it's choices about the different materials that we're using or other design considerations. That's something that's very much embedded in the design work we're doing right now. We are also thoughtful about safety and security and how the stations, for example, will be designed in a way that people feel safe and it's very easy to understand how to navigate their surroundings. And also kind of working with CAT Metro and the city both on how we will account for those items over time once it's operational. The last item here is what that's referring to is when there are problems. If there's a breakdown, if there's an accident, if something happens while the light rail is operating, what do you do? Is like bus bridging or other things. We need to think about that now in the design to make sure that'll happen. So we're developing a number of different plans and different requirements, thinking towards how service would operate, how the rail fleet would be managed, and how maintenance would occur. That's all work that's happening over the next year. And we have our working groups that are established that have not only ATP and CAT Metro and the city, but also we have some folks on our delivery partner team who have very specific expertise in the area of operations and maintenance who are there to help us as well. And the final component of this work stream I want to mention is it's called on here O&M model. And what that's referring to is exactly how these services will be delivered. It's possible, like when I mention operations and maintenance, you're thinking of the people who are driving the train, but it's encompassing everything from who's driving the train, who's answering the customer service calls, who is cleaning up the stations, the communications aspect of it. So there's so many components of it. So we just recently launched a work group together with, it's really the executive team members from ATP and Cap Metro and the city to talk about these, really map out all the activities and, assign those activities with the folks who are best able to complete them, and including considering what might be contracted out, the different components of the operations and maintenance. So that's another thing that we want to have some process around and think through over the next 6 to 9 months or so. And the different contracting strategies and how we might bundle those services or choose to have them be in-house, with some of the partners. That's the work. Ultimately looking to have a recommendation that goes forward for consideration to the ATP board later this year. I think this next slide is my last one. There we go. And just to speak to community engagement. So, our teams are on board now, and kind of one of the activities at present is to think about engagement, especially over the next year or so, as the design is progressing, how to kind of plan for and make sure that there's meaningful outreach and input opportunities. So we're thinking through that now, and I know we'll be back to talk about the game plan there and get your input, thoughts, and awareness on that. We're continuing the work to think about how we can best support businesses, especially during construction. And I know we were here talking about that topic within the last couple of meetings. Right now, we're still doing block walking. So there's a team going door to door along the alignment to meet with businesses, let them know what's going on, receive input. We have a survey out there that we're getting our responses to. And finally, the public art program, that's also in progress, and I'm sure we will be back to speak more about that. That's another one of our activities for this year. So with that, I think it is my last slide, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Pine. We'll open it up for questions, and I see Vice Chair Summers, you have your hand up. We'll start with you.
I have 2 questions, at least for now, but the first one is just a real simple question. I know the last time we spoke about this, you were in the process of hiring the public art coordinator person team. Has that been completed?
Yes, we have hired him.
Great. That's great to hear.
And he
I
has
know
started.
that this body is really interested in learning more about that whenever that team is ready, which could be a little while. They just got hired. So my second question is a little bit about sort of like, there's a lot of design choices that can be really impactful in multiple ways. And I'm going to actually use an example that many people have actually brought up to me, which is about paving treatments. So like one example, people in the community have asked me, like, are you considering when you're repaving the streets using like bricks or something like that? Because it may be more expensive to install them, but they may last longer than paving. They also can have a placemaking element. If you do it right, you could even, like, let's say on a pedestrian mall, like on Guadalupe, you could make it feel safer if you did it a certain way with the paving treatments. And then maybe that also has less maintenance over the years for a longer term. So like, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, so y'all tell me, but like there's a lot of interplay between these decisions. And like that's an example of something where I've had several people in the community say, especially in like the UT area, like we should consider doing bricks. And I'm like, that's great. Like I don't know where to tell you to give that feedback, but but it sounds like you're going to be doing some rounds of engagement to gather it. And are you like when you go out to the community, are you going to be asking about things like what kind of questions are you going to ask the community when you go out for that feedback?
Well, and that's a good question. And I don't know that I can really answer it in a fully satisfying way right now, because I think that's the work ongoing. As we get to the next design milestone, and have a moment to come out and look for input, I think that's just something we always need to be thinking about. What is it timely to make decisions on? It may be timely to think about the paving materials, later this year, or it might not be for a little while yet. And to make sure we're always aligning kind of the opportunities with kind of where the decision points are. But I think what you're bringing up about materials is a very good comment. And it's good to know that there's interest in that topic. That actually, it helps us to kind of know where to go with the information.
Yeah, especially also on places where, one of the things we've had where if there are still buses in certain parts of this segment, which I know is something to be worked out, like that's been a place of a lot of wear and tear on this same corridor with our buses currently. That's something light rail will help with, but that kind of thing. And I'll add one like sort of corollary to that, something that I think people are going to feel a lot of passion about. I myself feel a lot of passion about it, and you mentioned it as well, is the new bridge. You know, I feel passionate about it in two ways. One, I want it to be beautiful. Two, I don't want it to absorb half the project cost or so I think that like thinking about how to do a bridge that honors the commitment the community made here and is beautiful and also has great utility but is not, you know I don't know. I was going to say the Cadillac. Maybe that's not the best example anymore. Like whatever the most expensive car is, I think that we can have beautiful functional things without spending half our budget on something. But that's something also where I think the community is going to care a lot. So these are very important decisions but we have to think both design, use, and cost. And you highlighted that. That's what your whole presentation was about. I'm just backing you up on that, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Summers. Any comments from staff as we proceed?
Oh, well, no, I mean, I appreciate that comment. And the bridge is, I think, a very visible, part of the project. It really is going to matter how it looks and how it feels to people, not only, the train driving across, but there are bike and pedestrian facilities. So we're like actively engaged right now in thinking about the different bridge types that might be appropriate, how to go about construction of the bridge, as well as doing things like meeting with kind of groups who are interested in the BATs and making sure we're thinking about them as we are continuing with the design. So I think that's going to be an important area for us to kind of report out some progress and get input from the community.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Pine. I know we might have folks in the room, but we'll go to Mr. Crossley, you first, and then we'll go to Gonzalez.
Okay, I think I can do two questions, but just what I want about the bridge is to have a bus lane on it, and I don't know how to make that happen. So I just realized I don't know the operations plan, and it's a huge deal. And so 10 years from now, everything goes great. Is the light rail operations a completely separate entity than Cap Metro operations? And that's forever, they're separate operations? Or do they combine?
Well, I guess they're might not be fully understanding your question, but they're always connected and combined in the sense that the transit network needs to operate as a seamless system. But I mean, it is a question, I think, if certain components of the operations and maintenance are contracted out. What are they? Are there certain that Cap Metro would be responsible for? That's the kind of nature of the discussion right now.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you. I just didn't realize I didn't know what the deal was there. So the real question is the ridership modeling, and a lot has gone into this project about scenario planning, and how, when the debate's over whether we should have light rail or BRT or whether we should do this thing, entertaining the idea of allowing people to live near the line significantly impacted major decisions. And so my whole point is, are are you required to only use the Campo forecast? Or are you entertaining any scenario planning where you entertain the idea of 1 million people allowed to live in the city?
Yes, so we are using the Campo forecasts and we are required to do so as part of the federal grant process. To use the, approved or adopted data sets from the MPO.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Brooks, can you turn on your microphone? Microphone? Go for it.
Just commented that the stop software that they use is now, they're using with the 2050 Campo model, which is actually, they started with the 2030 model, I think.
Oh, started
way back when.
It could
The
be.
delivery partners can tell you about that. But yes, they are required, legally, they are required by the Federal Transportation Administration to use whatever the Metropolitan Planning Organization provides as forecasts. And this is one of the, providing the forecasts is one of the obligations of a metropolitan planning organization. Now, the other side of that is they can do, as long as they meet the federal requirements, they can do whatever modeling they want, including switching to the City of Austin DTI model. That would be a possibility.
Just going to ask, can you explain what the DTI model is?
Well, we've heard about the DTI model. We heard a presentation on it by the author of the model.
That was Delphi. The city demographer came and presented.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
And what I refer to as the DTI model is really the Lilo Valencia model.
So we do use something called the STOPS model, which is created by FTA, and they do require us to use that. If we want to, we can augment it with other models, but the STOPS is what matters for them from the standpoint of what they're using to evaluate the project.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. We'll go to Committee Member Gonzalez.
Sorry, I was having trouble finding the mute. I just had a question primarily around the, as you're getting custom build cars, my dream scenario for Austin is that we never stop building rail transit of any kind. And as we hopefully expand the system in the future, as we need additional cars, if we have a custom build, how does that work? Are there specifications held constant so that there are certain types of cars that can be on the line, or what is that like? I don't know.
Yeah. So in the proposals that we've received, generally, each of the car builders, they work from an existing model and they adapt it for you. So it's not this totally bespoke thing. It's all of the vehicles that we're evaluating. There's a base model that's in use elsewhere in the world, but it would be adapted for Austin to meet our technical requirements, whether it's about how bikes are accommodated or the number of seats, or if it's completely or partially low floor. So I guess there's a starter pack of sorts, and then we kind of go from there to refine it to meet our needs and requirements.
Committee Member, do you have any follow-up questions?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. Other folks with questions or comments at this time? Mr. Brooks, please go ahead. Microphone.
We stand on bicycles on the train.
You mean as far as what we're specifying?
Well, what is the overall process for deciding? My good friend David Foster, who's chair of the CAP Metro Customer Satisfaction Advisory Committee assumed right off that he could bring his bike on the train. And I know a bit about David's travels and asked whether some of the other countries he's visited, he was allowed to do that in every one. And of course, he said no, because there are some countries and cities which do not allow bikes on the train. So what's the process for deciding?
In our specifications, we are allowing bikes on the train. And so we are looking for the designs to accommodate some level of accommodation for that, whether it's like the spots where you can hang your bike or places where you can be, but also looking at the width of the overall vehicle and making sure that you can navigate around, including like if you're in a mobility device, it's wide enough, even if there are bikes on board. But yes.
So you've gone ahead and decided this?
That bikes would be allowed on the train?
Yeah.
Yes, that is one of our base assumptions.
Okay.
Yeah.
One could imagine things being done in a different way, but what's done is done.
I guess I'm thinking aloud here, Mr. Brooks. Did you have any sort of feedback on what does make sense or what you would like to see from that perspective?
Well, the one big argument against bikes on a train is it's already crowded. So committing to bikes on the train means you're committing to never having the ridership grow very, very much. Because if you're going to have bikes on the train from the very beginning, you're presuming that the train is never going to be very crowded. There is that kind of a commitment. And if you look at places like Amsterdam on the metro, where you have to pay an extra fee to take your bike on the metro. It's because they would like to discourage people from bringing their bikes on the metro because it fills up the cars and doesn't allow as many people. So they encounter the problem and have made a decision. It isn't clear that we need to make the same decision, or maybe we do. It hasn't been discussed or.
Well, if I may, I can offer like some of the thinking around that. I think one thing you bring up is the capacity of the train. Of course, we would love it to be filled to capacity, and we need to. So what do we do? We are provisioning for being able to kind of run 2-car consists or even more over time. Our ridership forecasts don't anticipate that we're going to need 3-car trains anytime soon, like hundreds of years. So, but this because the capacity of the vehicles is so much larger, but we do have a lot of flexibility around how we can address capacity. One comment I'd make about bikes in this, in the conditions that we have in Austin. And again, I'm absolutely open to the debate on this, but just to kind of share the perspective of that bikes actually make riding the train more attractive because, otherwise your destination needs to be pretty close to where a station is. And micromobility or being able to take your bike means it just opens up so much more, journey to you. And seeing kind of how bikes, for example, are on the red line and on buses, that was some of the basis for the thinking.
Yeah. It's interesting to note that bike ridership in Austin has not budged in the past 12 years. Despite all of the efforts to encourage people to ride bicycles, it's stuck at the same level it was when the Strategic Mobility Plan was first issued. So maybe it's a safe bet.
Commissioner Brooks, do you have other questions or comments? We'll go to Committee Member Gonzalez, and then we'll come back to Ms. Berryu.
Thank you. Yeah, I did want to push back on this, not from the ATP perspective, but my primary mode of transport around Austin is bike, and maybe the percentage share has not increased of bike riders in Austin, but Austin has grown substantially. And to ATP's point, on the red line, so many people ride that because they can bring their bikes and probably would not be able to otherwise. Secondarily, when you talk about Amsterdam and the metro, and a lot of systems that don't allow bikes are metros, this is a light rail line. And Austin might be 100 years behind on our public transport goals. We don't have a metro, we don't have heavy rail in that sense, but this is a light rail that will require people getting to it and to within a mile or so of it very easily. And bikes are a critical part of that infrastructure. And so I would just be remiss if we didn't elevate that part of the conversation, that this is not a metro. This is not a system that's built out to the capacity of Amsterdam or Milan or Berlin, where we have those other options. This is a critical connection point for those of us on bikes. I mean, my entire vision of it is I live on South Congress. It's like, I'm going to take my bike and be able to get to anywhere on UT campus, Hyde Park, to anywhere downtown. And I can't reliably do those trips just on the light rail alone. If we were building 5 times as much light rail, that'd be a different story. But for now, I think that is really important. And as hopefully one day we do get that bigger, grander infrastructure, then maybe those places don't have the bike. But on our light rail line, I hope it does continue. And I appreciate that assumption going on.
Appreciate that. Thank you, committee member. Ms. Pine, did you have any?
No, but thank you.
Appreciate it. Ms. Berry, please go ahead.
Mine are very simple questions, I say. When you were mentioning the current pre-construction activities, where are those being done in phases, and how long? I'm just curious, where it's being done and for how much longer? Just curiosity.
I actually don't have a great, I was going to look at Brittany to see if you wanted to speak to some of the pre-construction activities. Some of it is still in planning mode, but
I was curious because you were mentioning that we may see people out there, so I'm just curious on the timing for that. So when, for example, if people are asking Vice Chair Summers, if they're seeing it, just some information.
So some of the field investigations that we have going on right now as a part of pre-construction include survey work, where we have crews out using LiDAR to get a sense of the actual alignment. And it's accurate, like almost to a centimeter. So that really helps us in the design phase. We also have crews out doing tree surveys so that they understand all of the trees that are along the alignment, what type of tree they are, how big they are, and make sure that we have those cataloged for the course of the project. We've done some traffic counts where we put cameras at key intersections to understand the number of cars that are moving through there, as well as the number of pedestrians and bicyclists. And then, as Jen mentioned, we're doing the geotechnical work next, which is starting the boring or the potholing to get a better understanding of the soil conditions along the corridor to help further design. These activities will be going on probably for the next several months, and I would say there's likely to be some form of pre-construction activity occurring almost right up until we are doing construction. It'll just continue to evolve as our needs evolve in terms of getting data that will help inform construction of the light rail train.
Thank you. That's very informative and very helpful. I appreciate that. And my second question's more about, you were talking about the working groups and you mentioned the city representatives. I'm just curious who the city represent. Are they coming from like a certain department, or who are they council members? Who are the city reps?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, these are technical working groups. So it's mostly the transportation department, public works, mostly, but it can be other departments as well. For example, we're working with Austin Energy and Austin Water, for example, on related to utilities that we are expecting to interface with. So it depends, but it's from departments around the city.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Other folks with questions or comments at this time? I have several. If folks want to jump in after, please do. Um, gosh, I'm thinking of multiple different things. I think one was, this conversation sort of like OM integration came up for the operations maintenance integration, how the three agencies work together. I know there was work at the governance level looking at some principles and guiding what that looks like. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like and what sort of the thought is in integration, right? Like I think you were mentioning back to Mr. Crossley's response that there's one thing of like substantive integration, then there's like who issues a bid and who makes that decision. Like it's slightly different in my head, but I wonder if you can sort of speak a little bit to that as well.
Yes, thank you. Kind of in thinking about how decision making and governance around operations and maintenance occurs, kind of some of the principles that we've come to agreement on are thinking. So the ATP board of directors, has fiduciary responsibility and oversight for the public funds that are being used for Project Connect. And that's for the capital projects as well as operations and maintenance. And given that and when we sign the grant agreement with FTA, as the grantee, we have responsibility for not only delivery of the service in the way that we're describing it right now, meaning like 10-minute frequency and, that it's all day service and that sort of thing. But also that the system will be kept in a state of good repair over time. So that fundamentally, those different responsibilities sit with the ATP board. But we all have to work together everybody has different parts to play in how it's going. And I think the recommendation that will go to the board, the ATP board, would be about how those services are shared, what's contracted, what's in-house. One thing I can say for sure is that ATP will not be like hiring bus operators or train operators. But as far as like contracting it out and who does it and who does all the different components of maintenance of maintenance of vehicles, as well as different aspects of operating the service, from, again, customer service, driving the train and maintaining the stations, that whole suite of activities and how we will distribute those and what will we outsource is the main conversation right now. But ultimately, that recommendation goes to the ATP board.
Thank you. That's helpful. The other, and this is more of a wider question, I guess, from y'all's perspective, how are you looking to integrate older conversations into the design piece, right? Like I think over the years, things have come along. Like I'm going to describe this in the most layperson way possible, but remember the activity that was done with the goggles on, where it was like, like how does that data get input into design, or the recommendations that this body had for the operations and maintenance facility? Like, what is that pathway to taking all of that stuff from before and making sure that it's not like we're asking community to come again and talk about the same things again and again, but if we have captured it, we can carry it forward? I don't know. I'm open to any conversation.
Yes, and thank you for that question, actually. So you were talking about the virtual reality aspect. That, for example, like that was at our the public meetings around the draft environmental impact statements. That was early 2025. So all of the input there, it's all documented. In that case, it's documented in the EIS document itself, but we also have our own systems for tracking, especially design-related comments. So like in that case, there may have been some refinements that have already been implemented in the design, and those would be like what happened between the draft and the final EIS. There were design refinements and optimizations there. But some things just weren't right for, we're still in a state of preliminary engineering, and certain, you get more and more detailed as we go. So those comments that maybe aren't actionable at this stage, have been packaged up and provided to our oncoming designer and builder teams. So they have them as part of the next round of design progression, and we'll all be kind of working together to continually track how we're responding to the items that are coming up in our community engagement, and make sure that when we're at the right level of detail in the design to take action on them, that we're still tracking.
I appreciate that. And I guess I'll make a plug again that as you know, the folks are looking at the OMF, particularly operations maintenance facility, those recommendations that have been, we had worked with staff here, but also Ms. Almanza, the Mentopolis neighborhood and all, we want to make sure that that gets carried forward. And folks, feel free to jump in with other questions. As I said, I had a few. One thing I just want to bring up, this is, I guess, more of a comment. I don't think we're there at that level of detail. Maybe y'all know or do not know, which is the level of detail at which we're going to be getting input on design. And sort of what I mean by that is in the past, for something even just like what the shape of a shelter looks like, does it provide the kind of environmental protection we need from sun or rain or whatever? Sometimes those kind of input gets missed when we're doing it up front. And so, there's already decision made, an item is already and then we're bringing in, and then there's feedback, and then there's certain, so I guess I'm thinking aloud as I'm talking, which is, there's certain items that we know will go through much more faster replacement or can be replaced much faster, might be updated over the years, right? Like they might need an every year update. I don't know, like a coat of paint. But then there's some things like the actual, let's say, shelter design, which of course we would hope would last for a decade or longer, whatever that looks like, to just make sure that those elements that do impact rider experience we do get really robust engagement as a part of that, which again is challenging because it's very specific and granular, but I guess I would challenge all of us collectively to figure out how do we get that. And I know, Vice Chair Summers, we have talked about this in the past as well with your engagement on some of those elements in the past. The other, sorry.
No, I was just
no,
going to
please go
say
ahead.
thank you for that comment. And I just want to acknowledge, especially you mentioned shelters, but just in general with regard to stations and what those look like and how they fit into the neighborhoods. We know that that is an item of interest, and it is one that's yet to come, in the design that we're doing. If you look at the designs we have now, there's just not a lot of it's more space provisioning. But we certainly recognize that there's a strong interest and need for engagement and input as that evolves, whether it's, the aspects of the station or how public art might be integrated. So.
I mean, an example, and I agree, we're just not there yet, but honestly, folks have very strong opinions on turnstile design, for example, and which one works better than the other. And yes, I think it's a very real part of your daily experience if you're using transit. A few other things I just wanted to mention. One was, and this is just from this committee of the work we've done in the past, I'm sort of, looking at it as we're entering the design, is we really hope that as part of the conversation around accessibility, we can sort of go above and beyond, right? There's ADA compliant, we are compliant with the law and making sure that folks who have mobility impairments can use it. And then we will go above and beyond. I think Ms. Summers, you were talking about or was Mr. Crossley was talking about bricks and pavers and how that is used for wayfinding for folks who might not, be able to visually look at things. So there's just so much that goes into it. And I guess, again, I don't know where we are and what stage, but I'm thinking, right, it impacts everything. For example, even before purchasing vehicles, is it at grade entry into the vehicle? Is it a step up? What does that look like? So I really hope, I think that, again, we don't know what it might look like in detail, but that we can make a commitment collectively as a community to go above and beyond, not just meet the spirit of the law, but really make sure that accessibility is something that sort of lives and breathes in the system.
No, I really appreciate that comment as well. We agree that it's not about meeting the letter of the ADA law, but that it's the rider experience is very central to the design and how we implement this project. And it's truly accessible to all people, no matter, no matter what you need, to the best of our ability. So.
I appreciate that. And then again, folks, if you have other questions, please, or comments, please jump in. But the other thing I was going to say was, I think as we're thinking of those O&M operations and maintenance principles, I was wondering as a part of that, how much we're thinking of future proofing as well. And so, and this gets, it can be something really large. Is it that we can if ridership grows significantly, can we attach another car, another vehicle comes in, gets attached in, but then the station length, like there's so much that goes into that, I guess, thinking aloud from the perspective of future proofing, what that looks like to, Committee Member Gonzalez's point, if we would want to see the system expand more and more. So what does that look like? Folks 50 years, 100 years from now would be thinking about things that we would have done. I don't know if there's any thoughts of like how future proofing is being thought of in design.
Oh, and that's a great question. And let me just provide a couple of thoughts and examples. One is with the operations and maintenance facility itself, which now we have our team on board, and they're really taking a hard look at our preliminary design and thinking about how to optimize it. And that's sort of a grand question. We want to be able to have future vehicles come in, and how do you strike that balance between future proofing but not overbuilding, which has a cost consideration for what makes sense now. So that's really, I think, work that's underway right at this moment. Another thing that we've already thought about, even in our preliminary designs to date, is this idea that as demand grows and as the system grows, we might run the trains differently, have just one car or have two-car consists or what have you, and thinking ahead to looking at all the station platforms and how they can be able to accommodate those over time. We might not be building a longer platform at this exact moment, but we are making sure that design not only does not preclude it, but is set up for that as appropriate. Again, kind of striking that balance between being ready for the future without kind of overbuilding where we are right now.
And I should clarify my comment, which is exactly that I wouldn't want us to be over designing because there's a cost and there's trade-offs associated with that. And again, I don't want to latch onto the station because it's a more difficult one, but is there a possibility for extensions? Is there a possibility for more movement, more volumes of people, ensuring that at some point we have the ability to take over whatever needs to be done to make it happen?
Yes, and absolutely. Our intention all along is that the system is so successful, we expand, as quickly as we can, and just more people want to use it and find it very convenient. And that future extensions just make it even more usable for more people.
And I promise this is my last comment, which is about this came up earlier, is you had in your slides, looking at the multimodal integration. And that would be another thing that I really hope as we're thinking about that, we're not just thinking about the technical aspect of how do we do multimodal integrations. I'm particularly thinking train and bus, but that it's truly user experience based. And kind of what I mean by that is often, for example, in grade separation, folks will be like, bus stops here 2 blocks away. You have to walk, go upstairs, get in the station. I mean, it's a very different experience than having the kind of user experience integration beyond just the operations. I mean, there's of course the technical operations that who's going to operate and is going to have to figure it out. But how do we make sure that for the users, the multimodal is as seamless as possible as well? I think I would just encourage us to look at that as well.
Yes, and thank you. I absolutely agree. Again, if the user experience or the rider experience is central to how we're proceeding with the design, I think we're on the right path to really think about people who are transferring between the light rail and the bus, or the red line and the light rail, or using the bike share, and thinking about how it's easy to navigate that and it's safe and convenient.
Appreciate that. Any other? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's been much collaboration. Has there been much collaboration with DART or Houston Metro users to survey them about the system that they're using?
Well, and that's an interesting question. I was starting to nod my head because we do talk to other agencies all the time, including, not only Houston and DART, but really around the country, in LA or in Seattle and so on. But I think what you're asking is, have we talked to the users there?
That's correct.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Texans.
And that's actually a good point. Beyond what's publicly available, I mean, and and from our kind of communication with colleagues. If I could ask a question, so you're suggesting that to sort of monitor the experience, not monitor, but sort of understand the experience.
Build on their success and avoid their failures based on the users that are in Texas using the two major systems. It's just a suggestion.
Yes, no, it's a good suggestion. And, you know, where you have similar weather conditions to some extent. Yes, that's a good comment.
Well, thank you all so much. And thank you, Ms. Pine. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for other team members who are here as well. Committee members, that moves us to our action item that we had, which was working group appointments. No worries if folks have not taught this to, and I know Ms. McGee is not here today, and she was one of the folks who wanted to serve one of the working groups. Is there anyone who wishes to switch or join a working group at this time? If not, we can definitely bring it back as well, and I'll check in with Ms. McGee as well, because I know she had suggested some interest. Mr. Handel, I saw you come online. Did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. Okay, not seeing that, if folks are fine, we'll just jump into our staff updates, and I know maybe we'll start with ADP updates.
I think we pretty much gave the latest update we have with the presentation, so I'd say no for ATP.
City of Austin and Cap Metro.
No, City of Austin.
So Melissa Ortiz with Cap Metro. Our update is that our June service change goes into effect on Sunday, June 7th, which does include 2 park and rides, and as well as the full frequency for Rapid 800 and 837. And so it is a major milestone for Project Connect, and we look forward to having you ride the system.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz, and congratulations. It's super exciting.
Hi, I'm Peter Parthmiller with the City of Austin, and I just wanted to mention the DTI forecast that Mr. Brooks mentioned earlier is the Delphi Trends and Imagine Austin demographics forecast that the city demographer Lila Valencia had spoken last October, and I'll attach that presentation again to an email to Giannis, and he can share it with the committee. Another update I have is that the housing department released its scorecard for the Austin Strategic Housing Blueprints just last week, and I believe they'll be able to come and present to the CAC in the coming months. So, but I'll have a link to that scorecard in that email as well. And then the last thing is just to ask you to check your personal email addresses that you've given to ATP in the city for an email from the city clerk's office about your BC boards and commissions email addresses. I know that all of you, I believe, had issues with it, and they were expired over the last month, it seems. And the city has fixed that, I'm told, and emailed out to you. There should be steps to reactivate your account, and you'll need to do that within the next 30 days, or else we'll have to start the process over again. But please reach out to me if you have any issues with that or any questions, and I'll be able to help you with it.
Thank you, Mr. Barthmiller. I do want to mention just one thing related to the email committee members. Folks have different preferences for emails. I just want to, here's what I would recommend to everybody. We should all be using our BC emails for everything. Essentially what that means is copy it, do everything. Every communication that you have that's CSE related, copy it. However, if you have a preference to use a personal email address as well, we'll start the entire process again. Please email either Ms. Petkus or Mr. Banks or both let our staff know to essentially copy that at all time. What I will ask though is reminder, if you get an email from staff that comes to your personal email, make sure that when you're responding back, you have the BC email copied on it. You can do it the other way. I will say will be much more miserable for you later because that will mean you will have to go through your own personal email for any PIR requests, and you do not want that. You're a lovely staff to do that and walk away easily. So just make sure that you're always copying your BC email. But if you have a preference that your personal email is always copied on, just please let staff know. Even if you have told them in the past, just do it again. Do you want to say something, sir?
Just check it.
The other thing, Ms. Bartholomew, anything else from your end? Okay. This does take us into working group updates. Do we have any working groups wishing to provide an update? There's something related to this. I'm not sure it's a future agenda item or not. I'm just thinking about this. Some folks might have followed this along. Leadership and governance is having some conversation around the office location for the ADP. Of course, it impacts the way the community engages, certainly the meeting time. I have heard some concern from folks who would like to remain in one geography versus another because of transit or other mobility options. All that said, I'm not sure, that's something the boards will be deciding, but like if there's a role for us or not. If there's an interest and there's more feedback regarding that, which I am beginning to receive from committee members and otherwise, what we can do is we can take it to our governance working group. And if there's anything that needs to be talked about, we can do that. I'm just flagging that as something that's coming up and we'll sort of proceed with that conversation. Again, from our perspective, really just the functioning of our committee and how we continue to do that in terms of where we're located for our meetings. Yes, Ms. Berry, please go ahead.
Sorry, can you provide a little bit more background? Yes, just more background would be helpful.
I honestly won't have a lot of detail because I'm not as fully aware, but my understanding is I think ADP is looking potentially to expand space. Like Ms. Pine was saying, the space is just run out in this office. So whether that's expansion in the same building, whether it's expansion in another part of downtown, whether it's an expansion in another part of the city, that's really the conversation. And of course, that's like a real estate conversation that let the boards make. But naturally, I know for our perspective, for example, being in our transit hub is easy. When we've heard that from community members that they want to be in a space where it's easy to access as well. So that's really what I'm thinking from the perspective of how do we maintain accessibility. Beyond that, I mean, I'm sure there's like spacing, real estate considerations that I'm not even aware of. Yes, Constable.
How many square feet do we need? Or y'all need?
So to the question, how many square feet do we need? We are trying to house a number of people. So we are trying to house like up to 300 people. To be honest, I'm not the person to answer the question on how many square feet we have here or what have you, but I do know what we're trying to accommodate.
Well, my point is with everybody with the working from home, 700 Lavaca, there's plenty of office space available that county could rent out. Or we've got a bunch of vacant schools. School district could certainly use the money too. And what I'm saying is I'd like to see public money kept with public entities utilizing buildings that are being underutilized. That's just my thought.
I appreciate that, Constable Sweden. Will, again, if this conversation proceeds again, I don't know what our role really is in the conversation, but we'll definitely loop everybody into the conversation.
And just to follow up, and I think those are really excellent points. There's nothing like, what is the timeline for this? Like, we still have time right now, or?
Yes, I mean, I don't know about the timeline at all. I'm going to assume, I know it's an ongoing conversation.
I can speak to, we have the lease on this space for, I think, about another year. It's not like a next month issue. So.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. But I know the board is considering that sooner rather than later. So we'll make sure we're in the pipeline as that.
No, and that's helpful. And I'm glad because I did see articles about it. And so this is helpful information just to understand and hear it directly from you guys. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, future meetings and agenda items. Oh, did you want to, Mr. Brooks, please go ahead. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Brooks, microphone, please. And you'll have to start from the start.
That we should take another look at the phone app or desktop app that TxDOT claims credit for, but they in fact send it out to a contractor. It's called CTX Go, CTXGO. Will enough to get you the App Store or the Apple Store. And it has the best collection that I've seen anywhere to date about construction projects that are currently ongoing. It does appear to be somewhat oriented towards cars, and I think things could be done to make it more useful for pedestrians and bicyclists, and so we ought to take an early look at it. But there is currently no ATP data in there because you haven't started construction yet. So, but there's all kinds of data on I-35 and a whole bunch of surprise construction that I didn't know about.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we'll definitely bring it back. I'm unsure, honestly. Staff, I might need your help figuring out like who we can talk to about this or have that conversation. So we'll sort of take that up, but I'm making a note of that. We'll definitely see if we can bring it around. A few things from the past I do want to mention. If folks have additional items, please do. Mr. Parthimiller just mentioned, I know Vice Chair Summers, you've asked before quite significantly for a presentation on the blueprint scorecard. We'll bring that. Same goes for the arts program lead. They're going to be coming as well. They would have come today, but we just didn't have time on the agenda. So we'll definitely get those two items rolling on that aspect as well. And then I know that this committee does not make any specific recommendations regarding acquisitions of parcels or everything, but I do want to acknowledge what Ms. Almanza brought up today. I'm hoping staff can circulate her letter to everybody so you can look at it as well. And what we can do is potentially figure out with our either that's, I don't know, essentially from Austin Housing, if there is an appropriate way for us to at least engage or forward that conversation. So I'll try to figure that out as well and see if we can get that on the agenda. It's good to know that that item is not like a zoning case or something. It's not, didn't seem like there was a very significant time constraint, but we'll try to talk to our staff about that as well. Yes.
I have two questions. One is how often will we hear like updates from on the light rail and the presentation? Like, okay. I don't know if I really know if I have an answer, but I do think that there was a lot of opportunities to continue having more conversations. And even some of the questions that you guys brought up for me made me feel like there's a lot more information. And I just don't know when is the right time to ask certain questions, like about the stops. And so I don't know how to say that really to put on the agenda, but I guess when there's major updates or when there's like working group updates perhaps, or community feedback, I would definitely want to hear some of that. So
appreciate that. I think that's a good point. I'm going to be thinking aloud as I speak. So yes, I think to Ms. Pines, like it's essentially at our will when we call. So we currently, what we do is we sort of have like, like the public arts program or something very specific. And then we're doing a cadence to make sure that Cap Metro is, because there's so many elements to Project Connect as well, to make sure that Cap Metro and ATP continue to sort of provide us updates as it continues. Of course, there's the working group, but beyond that, if there's particular elements or questions that you would want to us to talk about, or even if you're like, we just need a refresher on this, right? I've forgotten what it was. Please feel free to email staff and I'll make sure that we're doing that on the agenda. Reminder to put something on the agenda. I mean, you can just tell me and I'll, we'll figure it out in terms of cadence, but it doesn't always have to be in a meeting. If you email and there's a second, then that goes on the agenda. So just letting y'all know.
okay, thank you. That is very helpful. And especially I hope for some of the newer members as well for us to understand that. My second question is kind of piggybacking off of the housing. I had somebody reach out to me yesterday asking about the status of the funding and that they heard that it was opening up again. And so I'm just curious if we can hear a little bit more about the CIS funding, and just what's the status on that? Because people are asking or talking about it.
I appreciate that. And we'll work with our City of Austin housing staff. And what we can do is, if it's something that can be done within our staff updates, we'll do it there, or others, but we'll make sure at least the timeline is clear to everybody here. But then beyond that, if you want to dig into the substantive, we can put it on the agenda as a meaty item to discuss as well.
Thank you.
Any other agenda items? Okay, so that brings us to the adjournment. Unless I hear otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the CAC at 6:40 p.m. Thank you all very much. Thank you to our staff.